Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. We appreciate you checking out the podcast. National Signing Day dominates the conversation. We got Mike Farrell from Rivals on the biggest headlines and winners. Brian Kelly from Notre Dame on his class and the type of kid he's recruited and how that's changed over the years. Among the other things we discussed, some NFL offseason questions. Is your perception better in terms of Hall of Fame voting if we just know what you've done wrong? And if you're a crazy charismatic Greek guy with $25,000 from a Super Bowl pool, where would you go? Podcast starts now.
SVP and Russillo.
Before the show, we were talking about UFC. You're a huge UFC fan, right?
I'm not great with knowing who everybody is. I'm not going to sit there on a random night when I have to watch NBA.
You know Sylvan Diaz. Obviously.
Oh, yeah. Look, I get most of the pay-per-views, and right now it feels like it's on fire with all this stuff going on. So anyway.
It's hugely popular. Fight this weekend. Silva tests positive for steroids, Diaz for marijuana afterwards. And that's
after Bones Jones tested positive for cocaine and then having to do kind of, his mea culpa,
Your reaction to this is what?
Having this job, it doesn't help, but I'm just numb to it all. But I do think it's different with UFC guys more so than team guys because they're not representing your favorite team. You're not wearing the jersey of John Bones Jones and the element of what this sport is. This is gladiator type stuff. And I'm not trying to completely look over drug use here, but I think it's easier to rationalize with fighters than it is, say, the quarterback of your favorite team.
You use the word barbarians. These guys get in the octagon, and let's be honest. This is obviously there's technique, but this is a brawl. This is sanctioned brawling, and so at the end of it, one guy's got some. Hey, he had weed. The other dude had some steroids, and it's collective shrug, right?
Yeah, and just go, all right. I'm not. I don't want to sound like
You're
saying, hey, I think it's cool. When Josh Gordon gets busted for all this stuff, I shrug now too. Okay, I go, that's too bad.
But you're right to point out that
it is different. It's easy to accept.
Right, because in the case, if you're a Cleveland Brown fan, this guy's the best receiver you've got, and you're thinking, oh, man, please just get this figured out because now, while we worry about you, this impacts us as opposed to, in the case of Silva, Diaz, Jones, no impact to anybody. So it's not endorsing, but also not outraged. And that led to an interesting discussion, totally unrelated, about the idea of the Hall of Fame. And whether or not, if you are found out to be, if your sins are out in the open.
Public sins. We know your deal.
We can see your warts, but we accept you warts and all. How different is that than if it's something that's shrouded in something of a mystery?
Marvin Harrison was up, okay? This is somebody that has 23 NFL receiving records. In 2002, he caught 143 catches, all right? That's an insane number. And the fact that he did it 12 years ago in this league, and all they've done is thrown since then. And we always thought that Marvin was the buttoned-up Syracuse guy, ultimate professional, Peyton Manning, same page. And then GQ comes out with that article a bunch of years ago where you got a guy witnessing him shooting somebody, and everybody starts telling the backstory of who Marvin Harrison really is in the mean streets of Philadelphia. He gets shot at last summer. And
by some dude in his underwears.
Right, and it's like we're realizing this is the real guy from The Wire, okay? That's who Marvin Harrison is, and it's a complete shock. Warren Sapp gets in trouble this week, not one person surprised, okay? But Warren played it right. Like he decided, okay, I'm keeping it real over here, but I'm going to put on a show for it. I remember doing the St. Jude's thing with him. He killed it. I reminded about him once when I ran into him, and he was like, I don't even know you. I'm like, what are you talking about? We did a charity event together. And he just started yelling at me. So everybody knew that Warren had a side to him, but he cleaned it up a little bit, gets in the Hall of Fame, gets the NFL Network, has the book thing, comes on with us, is awesome. One of the best interviews, But we always kind of knew going back to Miami days that there was a life on the edge there at times. Michael Irvin, it was always out there, right? Balls during his Hall of Fame induction speech. So moving that I remember Danny Ainge played that speech for his young players saying, this is how much it can matter to you. Play with that kind of passion. But we're still talking about somebody that did some awful, awful things, but we're okay with it. And I'm not saying hold a grudge, but I think with Harrison here, it was so shocking and he felt so deceptive that I bet you people have a harder time accepting him as a member of the Hall of Fame moving forward because he should be. His numbers are insane. than the other two guys that I'm talking about, where you always kind of knew there was a gray area.
I completely agree with this. And the analogy that we made as we talked about this pre-show is put yourself, because you're out there and you're not a Hall of Fame athlete and you're not a UFC fighter. Let's say you're in a sales gig and there's a guy, and you know that, when he goes to Wichita, it gets pretty late early. He's going to rip through his expense account. He's going to make some bad decisions. He's going to show up to work a couple of times a month, and he's going to reek like a wino. But when you put your numbers up on the board at the end of the month, that guy is beating quota. And when you go to Aruba in March every year on your who killed it on their numbers, that guy's going. And so everybody looks around and goes, you know what? When Bill goes on the road, boy, you just better not pay too close attention, and you better not bring morality into play. But our bottom line, we benefit from Bill. But then Greg over there, he's really good too. Goes to church every Sunday, sits in his cubicle, buttoned up. Wait a minute. He's in a swingers club and did what to who? When you find out that guy, people, whatever happened to swing dancing? What was that stuff called? Okay. The Harrison story, it's horrifying to think that this guy's like a real-life mobster. Gangster.
I started reading it again just to make sure I had everything kind of caught up.
It's unreal.
I'm going to read it again on the flight out because we were going, what? Are you kidding me? And at GQ, this guy got all of this info, and that the story keeps going on, and Harrison's up, and it's not supposed to be part of the equation, okay? LT's in, done. But LT's warts, you could see him. You could see him. So I'm not saying Harrison doesn't get in, because if we're going based on everything that's happened, dude needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
He has to.
But I could see the part of the process where I bet you there's some guys in that room, even though they're not really supposed to, that feel almost dirtier saying yes to Marvin Harrison because of who they thought he was and what they found out that he really was.
I think I think this stuff is really interesting because I think it's real, and I absolutely think that that's in play. And I guess the moral of the story is beat Bill, go to Wichita, but kill it, close those sales, right? Everyone knows.
No, you're right. I've worked with guys. You know what I mean? We had a manager once that wasn't on site, and he was coming in to tell everybody that everything was going to be all right, and he got wasted, just destroyed the night before because, he was away from the family, and he ended up getting into a fight with somebody, and, his face got so mashed up that he sat in the conference room with the door locked while everybody who was working at the place was hoping to get some FaceTime with him to find out what was happening to the company. And we were like, what the hell is going on?
Was he good at his job, though?
Here's the thing, is I'm telling this story. He wasn't very good at his job, so at that point, no one was accepting anything. But you know what I mean? Everybody kind of knew. Everybody kind of knew, man, here we go. We're like, he'll be fine. But you're right. I think the better way to say it is there's some last call Marriott Club guys there on, Tuesday, and you see it. I mean, I went to those Disney things.
What do we think about these numbers here? Think we're going to sign off on that, Mr. Brewster-Myers Squibb? We got a deal?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what it is. I always feel like if you're like Barkley, if you just keep – now, this is a long, long stretch of him saying exactly how he feels, and it's different. I mean, I'm not putting Barkley in this group at all. What I'm saying is that Barkley –
he can't sell at all.
Barkley kept saying exactly how he felt about everything until the point where it didn't bother anyone anymore because they accepted it. And I think that's kind of the moral of this thing, is if you keep doing your thing long enough, you still got to have something to offer. And you're right. These players are good enough. Your sales analogy works because the salesman was good enough. But with Harrison, you go back and read the story from GQ, and you go, that's right. That's who that dude was. And we never thought it ever while he played.
I think also as a postscript, don't shoot people at car washes. That would be in play, too. That would be a thought.
SVP and Russillo.
From Rivals.com, their national recruiting director, a guy that I've been friends with for more than a decade, which I can't believe it's been that long, but Mike, we're all older than we used to be. It's great to talk to you, especially today, given that it's signing day. I'd ask you what the headline is, but I can guess at the moment that it's the number one recruit saying he's going to go to Auburn, but not sending in a letter, and I've been reading your timeline. You've been texting back and forth with him. Where's Cowart going?
He's going to Auburn. He said regardless, he's going to Auburn. I feel old, Scott. I really do. I mean,
I bet today you do.
the stuff just, I'm like that old man saying, get off my lawn, just send in your letter. So it's like he committed. He didn't sign both letters. That was originally what his coach told me, that he signed both letters, and Byron told him to wait. Byron admitted that he told him to wait. He wanted to see what C.C. Jefferson, a five-star defensive end from Florida, was going to do. He's announcing at 2:05. But then Byron told me, he's going to get it done. He's going to get the letter faxed in. The big issue here is the coach's son, the high school coach's son, is a on-field coach at Florida, part of the new staff, and Armwood is a pipeline to Florida. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I just don't.
Okay, what's the biggest headline of the day as it relates to a team that has a ton of momentum today? What's the single headline for you at 1:30 Eastern signing day?
Well, it was Auburn, but until he signs his letter, I'm going to say UCLA has done an amazing job. They really surprised a lot of people. I knew they were going to get Chris Clark, the tight end from Connecticut. I knew they were going to, get Soso Jamavo from Texas, who's a running back. I didn't know they were going to get Joshua Boko, an offensive lineman from Oklahoma, even though some people told me they would. And I definitely didn't know they were going to get Roquan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia, who I thought was going to go to Georgia. Now, Roquan Smith's having second thoughts. Trenton Thompson, who's a five-star defensive tackle, committed to Georgia, was at his announcement. He announces on TV. Trenton gets in his ear. Now they're discussing things. He could end up, committing on the air and not signing as well and going to Georgia. But I think UCLA has done a very good job here. Small class.
Mike, Ohio State's sitting in a top 10 class at this point. What has Urban Meyer's momentum done now with a national title? What has that done for recruiting to an area of the country where it seems like the rest of the conference can't keep up?
Well, it certainly helped down here in the stretch, especially with Jim Harbaugh coming after a few of their guys. He came after Mike Weber, the running back from Cass Tech. Cass Tech is a pipeline to Michigan. Weber had been committed to Michigan prior to Brady Hoke getting fired. He flipped to Ohio State. The national championship, Ezekiel Elliott, it just shows what you can do at Ohio State, and Weber stuck true to his word, signed with Ohio State today. So that helps. You're going to see a real big kick. And Isaiah Prince, the offensive lineman from Maryland, I thought was going to end up going to Maryland in the end. He committed to Alabama, then decommitted 4 days later, and then it was supposed to be Maryland, and then Larry Johnson got him out of D.C. area for Ohio State. So they've got the momentum. It's helping. But next year, you're going to really see the results. You're going to see, a 2016 recruiting class that I think is going to be top 5 and beyond. I mean, Urban's just an amazing recruiter.
National Signing Day, Mike Farrell, Rivals with us, ESPN Radio. I know everybody kind of lives in that gray area of this stuff, but when Urban went to the Big Ten, he was saying, hey, I'm coming after your guys. And everybody get mad, and then everybody kind of decided, I guess that's the way you have to do business. Who's considered the most aggressive when it's going after guys that are verbal commits?
Well, I think he's got the reputation for doing that. I think Tennessee is also starting to gain a reputation. They just flipped through Richmond, five-star offensive tackle from Memphis who was committed to Ole Miss for a while. They flipped him after a late weekend visit. So I would say at Butch Jones, Auburn has raided a lot of schools, including Florida. I mean, Will Muschamp is just pummeling his former employer, and I think that's fun for him, and it would be fun for me if I were in this situation. Gus Malzahn flips kids. Everybody flips kids, though. This has gotten out of hand. I'm using the word flip. If this were a drinking game, I'd be on the floor, passed out, dead.
Well, and just for those, because we realize that, Mike, that not everybody that's watching and listening is as up to speed as obviously you are. A flip just means a kid gives a verbal commitment, which is not binding, and then a school comes in somewhere else, and then they get him to ultimately sign there. And you do a segment it's called The Mind of Mike. Are you losing your mind, especially this year, of how many top 50 kids are supposed to go one place and then ultimately end up going another?
Every kid who seems to commit has been committed somewhere else. I'm like, I remember. I used to be committed to that school. Or, we had a kid, Arden Key, who was committed to South Carolina, then decommitted, then recommitted, then decommitted, then flipped to LSU. So that's like I don't know how you beat that one. We've had a kid commit to 4 different schools. Kendall Bussey, who's going to Texas A&M, committed to 4 different schools during the process. So every kid that's committing, you think back. Recommitted and flip are the words I'm using the most. Dalen Mack just recommitted to Texas A&M. On and on it goes.
Last thought, Mike. If you're going to bet your money on one kid whose name 5 years from now everybody will know like a Clowney that will project at the next level, you'd be shocked if he missed. Who is it?
I don't want to say a quarterback, but I'm going to say a quarterback, and it's going to make me sound stupid because five-star quarterbacks don't pan out. 2 stars do. Josh Rosen, man, is the best quarterback I've scouted. He's the number 2 player in the country going to UCLA. He's got an attitude. He's a cocky kid. It's the reason Stanford didn't offer him. But I think if he keeps his head on straight, he's going to be an absolute star, and we'll be talking about him like Andrew Luck.
I know you probably have them lined up like planes over O'Hare wanting to talk to you all across the country. The Godfather, the best there is. Mike, appreciate your time. Good to talk again. Be well, all right?
Thanks for having me.
Always. That's Mike Farrell from Rivals.com. He joined us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. At Subway, you can make every morning the best morning ever with freshly made breakfast sandwiches. Subway, eat fresh. I was going to ask him a UCLA-USC question because USC with Sark is – you thought when he got back home he'd do a really good job. Those two, like Battleground LA, is a real thing that's going on right now because Mora is getting a phenomenal class at UCLA, and USC with the cachet that they always have, they're gonna just pump out NFL prospects too. I think that's a real life battleground that's going on in Los Angeles between those two.
You'd think there'd be enough kids to go around for those 2 campuses.
I think there are. Is what's happening
because you're looking at 2 top borderline 10 with the way UCLA, depending on which rankings you look at, it jumped about 5 other schools in the last few days with the guys you woke up with realizing that they got today.
But as Mike points out, it's been truly, truly insane this year with the number of commits. And the one kid that he mentioned that committed twice to USC being South Carolina, then ultimately went to LSU. I believe he did like a blind hat draw, best out of 5 or something. And that's such, whatever, man. I don't know how, if I was a recruiting coordinator, all of you across the country, wherever you are, my thoughts and prayers are sincerely with you.
What's more offensive to you, though? The kid that commits, decommits, verbal commits, plays this game. Because I totally get how annoying it is. Especially, imagine being a fan and you're going, okay. But then to go and light up a kid on Facebook that's in high school, you probably don't have a ton of friends. But what about the coaches that nail it, got everybody we wanted, the guys they didn't get, we're like, I really weren't that interesting. I actually find that more offensive than the kid that's just playing the game and excited about the attention.
I understand, but the adult has to rationalize it some way, and the easiest way to do it is just to be like, that kid stinks. I think that you have to because look, you'd lose your mind trying to do this. You've got a kid, you've had him committed since last summer, and then now at February 4th, he's dueling fax machines.
Right, but like when we have all those coaches up on campus, and it's one of my favorite times of the year during the summer. We get all the conferences. They just roll them in. And I always try to get a guy to be like, who's the one recruit looking back over the years you wish you had? And almost none of them want to answer that question.
Right, because it's admitting defeat.
Yeah, and there's no scoreboard to tell you that you actually lost that game,
To a kid.
SVP and Russillo.
Outside of your 6 for 6 today. 6 for 6 on rejoins. All tremendous so far today. Thank you.
How are you in general? I don't know. We haven't talked to him in a few days. The Super Bowl treat you well?
Yeah, I know, right? Lots went down. Yeah, the Super Bowl was good. It was an exciting game.
What'd you do for it?
We had snow. What's up with all the snow? I was snowed in again. We had like 8 to 10 inches that night.
That was a big one.
Nothing new? Anything else going on?
Watched Dawn of the Planet of the Apes during it.
Was that good?
Oh, yeah. I like those. You guys like those Planet of the Apes movies?
Yeah, man. That dude's mad.
Caesar?
You serious? You like those, Van Pelt?
Yeah, that first one?
First new one, or are we talking Charlie Heston?
I'm not talking about Charlton Heston and you damn dirty apes. I'm talking about the new ones, bro. CGI.
Yeah, that's what makes it even more kind of freakier.
Who's in that? Matthew Broderick?
No.
Ed Asner?
The guy from Zero Dark 30. What's his name? I'll remember it later.
What are you talking about? Al-Qaeda is messed up in this?
No.
What, you got nothing else to bring to the table? Is this the end? Have you peaked?
I kind of am nervous. I am after the whole donkey incident.
What are you talking about? Everybody loved the donkey story.
I know,
you did
but then
peak,
I heard
though.
you guys afterwards with the whole peaking and how is he going to top that? And
told
now it's a
us-
lot of pressure.
Yeah, you told a story of a donkey suicide in Italy when you were 6 and you wore a strawberry shortcake shirt for a week. It's okay. Everybody has a moment where it's as good as it can be. Tiger Woods won all 4 majors in a row.
Is that it? Am I Tiger now?
Well, just don't shoot 82.
All right.
Am I Tiger? Real quick, you think you peaked?
Oh, yeah.
Stanford Steve, you already peaked?
I'm not talking. Me?
Yeah.
No.
You haven't peaked yet.
No.
Some would argue you have.
That's great.
I love it. I love
have
it. Right.
What are your best days ahead of you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's great. See,
I don't know about you then.
See, I'm just realistic about it. I mean,
I wasn't the number one recruit in the country going to Stanford. I got nothing that's that cool. So that's why I'm not saying your current U Stanford Steve isn't all that great. I'm just saying it's a lot to get past. You know what I'm saying?
and my hair's falling out. My hip hurts,
Oh, mine's strictly monetary and job stuff.
I
Hey, 2015, you know what I'm saying about this year. It's all about content.
Yeah.
It's not about looks anymore.
I forgot to wear dress socks last night. I was sitting out there next to Barry Melrose wearing footy socks and loafers.
Then they took you off when they went back to Melrose.
No, I shoved my feet under the desk. I mean, button it up, Van Pelt. Get your act together.
Is Sweet Buckets still in Sports Center? Or
I didn't do it the last 2 nights. I totally forgot. I hadn't seen you, and I totally forgot. That's on me. See?
Kevin Connors owns you. I caught some of it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
No, I'm telling you, like his drops,
Yep.
more threes than a bad online dating service.
That's what he said.
Is it weird to see the torch passed in front of you?
Yeah, just dropping fire on me. Let me know. Let me know when.
Outside of Mike's in charge. Mike, will you let Van Pelt know when you think he is kind of washed up on
is he
TV?
peaked or what? Gosh.
Okay. Somebody tell me when Connors has got a good grip, all right? Then I'll give him a squeeze. Are we going to do these questions now? Or is it too late?
I got him.
Is it too late?
No, rapid fire. We got any football music? My voice has been screwed up for a week. I'm listening to myself right now. I know I sound like
Wonder why.
because I've been traveling. Headed to L.A., by the way. We're gonna do a little.
Are
LA.
you?
Yeah, we're gonna follow up on that at some point.
What are we doing? At 8?
Don't worry, I got stuff coming.
Okay, here we go. All right, first question. More likely, Brady with the Pats for the next 4 years or Peyton Manning in the NFL for the next 2?
Brady.
Wow.
Brady. Definitive. What are they going to move on from him? That you can't punt on him.
Garoppolo, dude.
He'll be Jeter with the Yankees. Even if he's diminishing returns, there's no chance that guy plays for anybody else. He's there for the next 4.
Peyton's owed just about $20 million. You know he's coming back next year. I'll go Peyton for 2.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Okay. More likely expensive toy to keep around. One that's good and one that's really not that good.
Gold jet ski.
The Jets keep Percy Harvin, owed $10.5 million base. They could rework it, but they keep him next year. Or the Lions franchise and Ndamukong Suh. Apparently that price tag could be about $27 million for just they can do a long-term deal, but
more likely?
Yeah.
Detroit's defense was their calling card this year, and he's the guy. Watch him.
I swear he doesn't get enough credit.
I agree.
It's unbelievable.
Whatever they have to pay, whatever they have to pay him. So Suh's the right answer.
Okay, least likely to be with their current team going into next season. E.J. Manuel of the Bills, Jay Cutler of the Bears, or Mike Wallace of the Dolphins?
Wow. Wallace, just because quarterbacks, even though Manuel and Cutler haven't proven to be the answer, it's still better than having a question of who you have. I'd say
E.J.'s not going to be the starter.
Who is?
Not
Locker?
I don't know. We got a draft
Locker?
off season.
Hurt Locker?
Coming back.
Hurt Locker.
It's not fair. It's not fair. Kevin Cobb.
Dude, a Hurt Locker.
Although
That's
the
a good
Bills have already
nickname.
paid him, too. I want to do a 30 for 30 on the money Kevin Cobb made in the NFL. All right, you ready? Final one.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson was on the Redskins to start next year. Your reaction is?
I'm psyched. Psyched. Guy's a good running back.
Good for you.
What am I going to do? Like, impose morality on stuff? I'm not. Redskins have stunk forever. He makes them good, that's fine.
SVP and Russillo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
SVP and Russillo.
Not surprisingly, many of the national powers continue to do very, very well, and Notre Dame is having a great class on this signing day, and Brian Kelly, their coach, joins us now. And, Brian, we appreciate your time. I said when we had you on that I wanted to ask you this question this way. There's a level of stress and angst, I'm sure, the night before a game. There's nerves, etc. How would you compare those versus last night and this morning as you wait to find out? Did all the guys who said they're going to come here ultimately send us the letter of intent?
I think it's less and less now. I think there's a lot more transparency in the process that, we had probably of the 23, 24 guys, I think we probably had 18 or 19 of them pretty firmed up at the start of the football season, and then it just was a matter of, continue to cultivate the relationships because, we were recruiting 2016s here about 3 weeks ago. My point being is that we're in this process a lot longer than it used to be. When I first started, so maybe 24 years now as a head coach, we jump into this in December, so it's
right.
It was a 90-day window. Now you're in it so long that you really got a good feel for where you are. There's probably maybe 1 or 2 or 3 high-profile guys out there that you don't know, but you have a pretty good feel coming to the last couple of days.
On the other hand, and we just had a recruiting expert on who said, probably 20-some-odd kids, it feels like, that are high-level recruits have changed their commitment at the 11th hour. What do we do? I know an early signing period would help, but I'm just curious, what's your level of tolerance for that sort of transaction late?
I'm not in on most of those guys. At Notre Dame, you're shopping down a different aisle. We're not better than any other school, but there's distinctions here that are pretty specific that you either are going to want to be in a school that has 8,000 students and, is the preeminent Catholic institution and has a high academic standard. So, we kind of know, there's not a lot of flip-flopping. You're either in or you're out. So it doesn't really happen to us quite as much. And so I understand that does occur when, it's really just more about, what football team do I want to go to instead of what university do I want to go to.
Coach, how often have you changed your philosophy on what types of players you want to bring in?
My profile has changed. In other words, when I started in Division II, I take a 6'2" tackle in a heartbeat. Now it's 6'8". So profile size has changed, but in terms of what I'm looking for as a football player, you got to love to play this game. It's a darn tough game for tough-minded guys. So there's got to be a passion for the game. You've got to have an intellect for the game. There's got to be a football intelligence where you got to get the game. You just can't be somebody that is an athlete and you're throwing them out there. There's got to be some football intelligence, and then you've got to be able to be coached. You got to be humble enough to know your strengths and weaknesses. So those 3 things have carried with me through Division II, through Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. The only thing that's really changed is bigger, faster, stronger as I've moved up the ranks.
Brian Kelly, head coach of Notre Dame's football team on ESPN. When I look at teams and who they brought in and kind of looking at yours, you see a lot of linebackers, receivers, running backs, and a lot of kids that play quarterback. How much of a challenge is it to get the kid to buy in, to show up to South Bend, also with an open mind about switching positions?
I think, there has to be a little bit of that in the recruiting process. I think that you've got to be able to talk about, look, we want to get you on the field as quickly as possible. If you're, let's say you're a kid that could play wide receiver or safety, I think you've got to talk about, look, you and I want the best thing for you. We want you to be able to impact this football team and be able to carry that if it happens to the next level. We want to be able to do what's right for you. So I've had great success doing it. Joe Staley with San Francisco. When I was with Central Michigan, he was a tight end. I moved him to tackle. Connor Barwin, with the Eagles. When I was at Cincinnati, he was a tight end. I moved him to outside linebacker. Jason Kelsey, I moved them to center. So those guys have to understand that you're going to do it in their best interest, too. I guess that's why I brought up those examples. They may not think it at the time. Joe Staley's dad wasn't really happy when I moved him. He sends me a Christmas card now every Christmas. I get a Christmas card. I think it was the second contract he signed that really put me over the top with him. So they got to understand that. And so the days of just saying you're going to play this position, you got to have that two-way conversation. If you do that, I think you're fine.
Brian, I realize each kid is his own unique individual, but would you say by and large that what ultimately wins the day for you when it comes to a recruit is the university or the football piece of it?
Well, I think there's.
I guess what I'm saying is everything else or football.
I think it's everything else. I mean, look, there's still 17-year-old kids that are going to make decisions based upon the uniforms and the helmets and things like that. But I think there's more kids today that understand that, playing in the NFL is not a career. It's just an experience. It's 3 years, and they're going to be left with, all right, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I think there's a lot more understanding of that. When I'm recruiting today, kids are understanding they got to get a degree. I mean, they've got to be able to do something else than just hang their hat on playing football. So I think that piece has come into play much more than it has at any other time.
I know we bugged you about this just a few weeks ago. We were down in Texas about the quarterback situation. But let's put it this way. If I were a big-time recruit coach, got all the size, 4-star, want to play right away.
You're a 5-star, Russillo.
No, let's not get carried away. What would you tell me about what's happening with the quarterback situation next year?
Compete. Kids, look, they want the easy way out. I mean, they want it handed to them, all right? I can't play here. I'm going to go transfer somewhere else. How about you learn how to compete? I mean, we got to compete. You guys got to compete for rankings and ratings. You guys got to compete every day. We have to compete in everything that we do. And so if it's always the easy way out, we're setting these kids up for failure. So what I would tell them is come here and learn how to compete, because it's going to just set you up for success later in life. And come here to Notre Dame and learn how to compete and play on the greatest stage. It's a Broadway show here, man. I mean, bright lights, and everybody's going to know who you are.
So translations, you're not sure if Golson's transferring then?
You guys are reading between the lines pretty good.
Ryan and I are going to hit the sign that says host like champions as soon as we get done with you here, Coach. We appreciate your time always, man. Congratulations on what, by all accounts, is a top 15 class. Continued success.
Take care, guys.
SVP and Russillo.
Signing day?
Do you get bummed out with this day? I think you and I are on the opposite ends of this.
No. I think I'm all for kids getting their shine. That's great. Enjoy the moment. We televise it. It's a big deal, and that's great. What I don't love is the number of kids who have been committed. Tennessee got a tackle. He's a top 15 player. Last name's Richmond. And he's been recruited to Mississippi forever. And then at the last minute, nope, not going there. And it's just it's when you empower teenagers, and then their parents don't kind of help them make great decisions, and the parents start to fall in love with the process and the attention, and it happens every single year, then I don't love the way the process gets played out. That's why when we had Brian Kelly on, for him, and what he said makes total sense. They don't deal with it a lot, because you're just dealing with guys that look at Notre Dame and realize, okay, I got a 4-year, 5-year window to play football. Maybe if I'm lucky, if I'm the 1% of 1%, maybe I get a 10-year run in the NFL. And then what am I? I'm 35 years old, and I've got, God willing, another 50 to live, and I've got a degree from Notre Dame, and that's going to serve me well. I'm part of that whole Notre Dame network all around the world. So they don't deal with this. But the rest of the world is just a bloodbath. And, everyone knows the rules of engagement, that there's no rules. Just dig in and hold on tight.
How would you compare a kid at the last minute flipping a verbal agreement, signing with a different school today, and what LeBron did with Cleveland?
How would I compare it? Hold on, I'm trying to get this board's a disaster today. I'm trying to get sound up here. This board's done. Oh, there we go. How would I compare it? Well, LeBron James is one of the best basketball players in the world. And he's a free agent, and he's going to make a decision based on a lot of different factors. And I know what he is. I know he's the best basketball player in the world. You're some 5-star kid. I don't know what you are. You might be able to help us. And if you've been committed to a school, see, that's the thing. Like, I guess LeBron, you could say he was committed to Miami. Yeah, he had a contract, but everyone understands that the rules stipulate that he could choose to go someplace else.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it at least with the first time he left. Like, everybody hated it, and I get it. Okay, it was a long time ago. Now he's gone back. But there seems to be this resistance from the public, sports fans. I don't think they like it when players have power. And I think that's why people hate recruiting day, as much as it's fun and people that are into it, it's exciting, but there's far more angst and negative reaction to the kids that have this attention, that maybe switch and flip and then, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I think that there's always been a problem with sports fans with players having power, and now we're talking about kids in high school, so it's even worse.
If you haven't committed, and a lot of these kids hadn't committed until today, and then you declare your intentions today and you do it on TV, I have no issue with that. I mean, I'm interested. This stuff interests me. What bums me out is that when the process is totally out of control, I mean, as Mike Farrell from Rivals explained, you have one kid that committed to a school, decommitted, committed to the same school again, and then in the end committed to another school, and apparently involved like a best out of 7 blindfolding picking hats. I mean, that's nonsense. That's where somebody in that kid's life, I don't care who it is, mom or dad, both, a coach, pastor, neighborhood friend, uncle, someone has to say, listen, this just is no way to behave, all right? This is no way to act, because ultimately your word should have some merit to it. And so I don't begrudge the power as much as I wish young people that, look, we've talked about it. Was I armed to make really good decisions when I was 17? No. I'm sure I wouldn't have. But I would hope that my mom or dad would say, Scott, here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to commit, decommit, and then turn it into a circus. I don't think that's unreasonable. Stanford Steve, you lived it.
Yeah. Did you ever want to decommit, Steve?
Well, I never technically committed until I signed on the line today.
So you signed. So how did it go? Like, how close were you to all the different places you almost went and then ultimately Stanford?
There was a list. I had 5. It was Stanford, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Michigan. They were all up there. Florida at the end. But I let Stanford know that I was really, like, they were at the top of my list, say. But the other guys, I said, I don't know. I had a really good time at Stanford. Went to North Carolina. A couple things happened there where I kind of lost some interest, whether it was guys that were coming in, guys that were at my position.
What about the painting?
Coach Brown misspelled my name in my room.
Brown misspelled your name?
My presentation. So that kind of made me feel like, all right, I think they're going to be all right if I don't come here. I'm evidently not at the top of their list.
Stan, we think you're great.
But yeah, I mean, you always think about it, and then there was that time when you get to Stanford, you're in your first 2 days. It's 2 weeks, the worst 2 weeks of your life, and you're like, whoa, I don't know. And school hadn't even started yet, and that's the biggest thing I was worried about. But then I realized the football thing was going to be a lot harder than I thought.
All right, but when Florida got in on it late, and I just
come back from my Stanford visit,
and you told Willingham you were good to go. Did you sign? You hadn't signed.
No,
yet.
I didn't sign anything.
Can't sign until signing day.
Right. Okay. So all I'm just wondering, was there any part of you that goes, you know what, Gainesville might be where it's at?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about Coach Spurrier they were playing in the national title game that year.
Well.
And said, we have tickets. If you want to pay for the tickets, I don't want to use this as a visit. I want you to come down to campus to see the visit. I drove home from the high school Heisman ceremony and looked up flights for the national title game. And I just sat down with Tiger Woods and told Stanford that I was good to go. Don't worry about anything.
Spurrier's flipping you.
And I'm at basketball practice thinking, I'm like, what am I doing? But I had that my brother was very good in the process with me, went to my visit to Stanford and said, no, you're where we were this past weekend is where is best for you.
See, that's great perspective, because it's really easy for me to sit over here and then you're putting me in your shoes. And if, let's be honest, I was out in Palo Alto, You go to the farm. It's beautiful. You think about being able to go from Ansonia to the Palo Alto, go to school there, what it would mean. I mean, I can understand being wowed by that. But then if the ball coach is on the blower, well,
and that was my guy. Like, that was when Spurrier had it cranked up.
Drop some ball plays for you.
It was unbelievable. Like, he's sitting there talking to me.
You would have been filthy in that offense.
Yeah, it would have been pretty good.
I'm still mad at Willingham for making you block for 4 years, but I just don't think Florida Steve sounds as good as Stanford Steve.
No.
Yeah, the alliteration is just so much better the other way. But that's great perspective because you gave them a verbal. I mean, it wasn't like the days.
I told them, don't worry about it. They wanted me to give a verbal. I said, Coach, don't worry. I'm not giving you a verbal because I don't want stuff being printed about, I didn't know enough about everything. I know they have their guys, and they tell people, hey, you could write this.
So why didn't you go to Florida?
I was in the middle of basketball season. I was good in basketball. I felt bad, keep leaving for these visits to my team. So that was a factor. And then, my brother basically sitting me down and telling me, you don't need to see any other things. You're good with what we saw this past weekend.
You're an honorable dude, bro. I respect that.
Man's man. The kind of guy who come over and dig a post hole.
Yeah, he gave me a lot of lumps growing up.
SVP and Russillo.
My mom was down in Florida, went and won the Super Bowl pool, big one, $20. She won the squares pool. She was psyched. She's like, I was kind of rooting for Seattle, but I won the money. I'm like, what'd you get, Mom? 20. Jackson, crisp.
Wow. Should you have said that on the air?
I don't know. I hope
she doesn't have to.
Oh, exactly. I hope there's no capital gains on that. Where is this? This is New York City? Brooklyn? Where Brooklyn at? Actually, they're asking, where is John Kambakakis at? He is a retired janitor. And he was the guy that was running the squares pools. And he collected $25,000, and now they don't know where he is. This would be the alarming part of the story if you were one of the folks that was involved in the squares pool, and you, particularly if you had 8 and 4. One of his favorite hangouts, apparently, is Atlantic City. So let's do the math. We got a guy that's described as liking Atlantic City, known to kind of carry around some cash on him. That was a rumor. Described as a crazy, charismatic Greek guy. I know a ton of those dudes. We got a crazy, charismatic Greek guy with a sweet tooth for Atlantic City and $25,000 in his pocket, and he's in Brooklyn. You could be at AC on the Felt in a couple hours. I think we can do the math here.
I wonder how many people listening go, well, that's terrible, or how many guys are going, good for him. Because that's a weird world there. If you're willing to do that, like Stanford Steve, you hear that and you think about just saying,
I know this guy. I have a feeling.
You know a couple of these guys.
I know a lot of these guys.
So how would that go down at, say, the club if Mr. Square just disappeared?
Well, we've had our issues with pools and Super Bowl pools, but it's gotten to the point where only certain guys can be in charge of the pool because some guys are no longer members at the club.
Men of honor.
Men of honor.
Guys that you trust to look after your kid or hang on to $25,000.
Or sergeant at arms.
Newly reelected. Thank you very much.
Congrats on that.
I appreciate it.
I love you. I'm not giving you $25,000 to handle.
Really?
Nope.
Me?
No, I'm kidding. Depends. Are we near like talking stick?
No, we're here.
Yeah, I'll give it to you here.
Turks? Probably not.
Nah.
Yeah, I hope there's no foul play, but I mean,
this guy's history. Are you kidding me? You don't disappear with $25,000. The Squares?
I think he went way farther than Atlantic City.
Yeah, I mean, if he's smart enough to pull this scheme off, I doubt he's just going to roll back next weekend going, yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry.
I just love the line, he's a crazy, charismatic Greek guy who was always known to carry $10,000. That was the rumor. Quote, a pal said. That's
what does that mean? He was always carrying $10,000.
I think if you got $10,000, that just means you're crazy and charismatic. Because I'm all for having a few 20s, a little foldy green spendy money, but you don't need $10,000. It's SVP and Russillo. Guests join the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. We're presented by Progressive Insurance.
I have a question for you guys. We were just talking about the recruiting day. We know it's all signing day today.
Yes.
Put yourself as much as you can in that 18-year-old shoes. You're going on your first official visit. You could pick where, whatever you want. What do you want to get out of your visit? What do you want to do?
It's hard because I'm an adult now.
I know. That's why I said try and put yourself in an 18-year-old mind.
I'd have to know I was playing. And I don't know that I would ever get that guarantee. We could talk about academics. Look, we could talk about the girls walking around. What's the weather like? Weather, girls, all that stuff will settle itself. The girls' part will settle itself if I'm playing. You know what I mean? I know it sounds, but I'm trying to think exactly how I would think as a 17 or 18-year-old kid. There's no way I'm going to come here and bust my you-know-what in practices twice a day and never play at this school.
So you want to go to the depth chart, coach,
Yeah.
I want to see what if one of the guys at your position is your host? How's that going to go?
I'm going to sabotage him, Fargo style.
See, I think that's actually great because you can find out. I mean, let's say, if he's a sophomore and I'm doing the math.
And he's good, and I show up, and he's like the man, and the other guys are going, yeah.
I think Ryan's onto something because especially at that point, let's be honest here. You're not ultimately that concerned about its standing in U.S. News World Report university rankings. You're just not.
Right. I don't think either of us would go to a terrible academic school.
I agree with
that.
that.
Be my number one priority.
I agree with that, but it's just you're asking me what's the first thing I'm thinking. My first thing I'm thinking is not, oh, hey, cool, it's ranked 60. It's a good school. It's not 190. You're right about the girl stuff because hey, where the ladies at? We'll figure that part out too.
Right. You don't want to go to the ugliest school in the conference either.
True.
I did. It wasn't until I came back till I officially enrolled at Stanford where I'm like, all right, we don't have schooling yet. What a party scene going on here? They're like, oh, you didn't know? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, 9 out of 10 girls in California are hot. That 1 out of 10 go to Stanford.
Oof. Ouch. So you went to the St. Mike's of the West Coast.
So
I think Ryan's right. I think you want to, because every kid is thinking, I want to play. Guys that are 4 and 5 stars are all think they're going to the league.
That's the biggest thing nowadays. Hey, I want to play 3 years. I want to go to the league.
3 years. It's crazy.
Every SEC school we've been to, right, Ryan?
One of the schools I worked out at 2 years ago. I go, all right, take me through all the things you do with these guys. And I said, what percentage of guys roll in here think they're playing in the league? And he goes, you should ask me the other way. And I go, percentage? And he goes, total. Because you get about 3 guys per class, I'm talking, that are on campus at the same time that realize they're not playing in the NFL. Think about that. Think how delusional you have to.
It's like the line in Shawshank, but don't you know, everybody in here is innocent. I mean, everybody thinks that now. So that'd be the first thing. Was that the first thing you were thinking?
Nah.
What were you thinking?
I wanted to meet the people that were going to help me with school, like the academic advisors. That's the first place I went because I was scared to death that I was just going to flunk out. Didn't have confidence in myself in the academic side of things.
At Stanford?
Yeah.
I can understand that.
So that's what I did.
I still love the people from your town thought it was great that you'd be right down the street and they could go to your games at Stanford.
That's a true story?
You haven't heard this?
That's true.
How many guys thought you were going to college in Stanford, Connecticut?
A lot.
Like, hey, I could go
I went to the mall. I don't see any Stanford gear.
You guys haven't heard us tell this story before on the I hate that, this will be our 6th year. There's some stuff I go, we're repeating this a little bit more and more. But if you haven't heard that gem yet, then I apologize if people have heard it before. You've never heard this, Van Pelt?
No.
That's a 203 for you.
I'm mystified.
There's a town.
That's right down 95, right?
There's a town in Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. It's right outside of New York City.
With an M?
That don't know, Stamford. And is it 40 minutes from your house?
You could do it in 35.
35, 40 minutes away. And when he signed with Stanford, I guess I should say Stan, and people were telling him they couldn't wait to come to his games.
Those folks would not have done well academically there. They would have struggled.
Yeah.
Wow.
SVP and Russillo.